Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute or two, but I'm back and got more videos to come. As you guys can see, got some glass in the C10 behind me, but this video, we're gonna do a little bit of in-depth of what was wrong with my bed and what a lot of the stuff I had to go through to fix the sheet metal and kind of make it look decent and get it prepped for primer and eventually paint. So that's pretty much what this video is going to deal with, is diving into all the repairs and stuff and all the fabrication I got to do and body work in order to get the bed looking decent for primer. So I'm just going to dive into that video right now and show you guys what I'm dealing with. Well, let's start with this mess that is my bed. That ended up being a lot more work than I anticipated for all new sheet metal. Some of it was my own fault because of my own modifications, and others were just poor stamp quality and kind of the regular stuff you probably run into with aftermarket parts. So with the roll pan, that was obviously my addition. So this isn't that big a deal. A little bit of body work down here, right here where I welded this all in, so it has nice contoured edges, and then I still need to finish welding and body work right here. That's not a huge deal. This right here will get covered up by some light filler high build primer. One of the issues, I guess you could say, I noticed was with this lip right here. I can't get the tailgate adjusted any better to where it fits against here and here and clears this really well. As it sits right now, it does clear this little lip right here, but once it gets paint on here and the tailgate, it will rub. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually grind this down, start it over here a little bit. I'm not gonna take it all the way down because this lip needs to be here, but I'm gonna grind this down just a little bit and then feather it with a DA and clean that up a little bit. And that should give me an extra millimeter or two so paint's not scraping off when I open and close the tailgate. Now let's get to some of the other stuff. This was the old wheelhouse that I had to modify, and all that filler you see, a lot of it's going to be sanded off. I just kind of hit it roughly with some 80 grit the other night, and that still has to be sanded quite a bit to clean that up. This side is a little bit more in the final finish before primer, except for right here. I still need to kind of sand that and hit the top one more time. Stake pockets, no big deal. Front and rear, those turned out pretty damn good. This bedside was kind of a huge problem, and it had nothing to do with where I welded in the side markers. It just, this whole area, especially where it was stamped around here, it just wasn't flat, and so I had to add filler there to get a nice straight edge for when it's painted in black. What you see right here, I've just taken down with a file with some 36 grit. I have to come back over this again with some 80 and again with some 180 and knock this down. So all these low spots that you see, those will disappear when I sand this one more time before this goes in primer. And this side really should be good after I finish sanding this to put this side in primer, except for the problems back here. Now, what I did notice with both of the rear of these bed sides is there's a lot of issues. On this side, this whole edge right here does not line up with the tailgate at all. So I need to build this whole edge up, and it's got to be built up almost 1/8 of an inch. And so, especially where that's an edge, filler is not going to work on that at all. What I'm going to end up doing is I'm actually going to just take some metal and I'm going to weld on to this whole edge and then feather it in. It shouldn't be a big deal, but I do have to weld on a whole extra edge right there, and then gonna have to body work that in to clear where the tailgate sits. The other side's actually okay, it doesn't need as much work, but that's a big issue on this side. And then none of the lights fit in. I actually had to massage this whole edge, especially in the corners, to get the lights to fit. And same with this. This side is a little bit different because we're gonna do the remote filler right here for the fuel tank. So I had to end up cutting this out anyway to gain more access, but it's kind of the same as the other side. The lights do not fit, and so this is all had to be massaged out in order to get the lights to fit in. And then there is one issue with right here. This all lines up with tailgate pretty well, except for right here, as you can kind of maybe see with the stamping, the sheet metal is kind of pressed in this way. So from here to here, I'm gonna have to build this up with some weld and then clean it up so this has a nice edge along here. So that was about the biggest issue on this side. And then as far as this bedside goes, it's kind of tucked away, but kind of show you, this side was a lot better. There was one dent in shipping right there. Just took a little tiny bit of filler right there. It was this very, very small little, just kind of ding. And this side right here, this is where I welded up the other side marker, and this has almost all been feathered out. I've got to come over this one more time and do a final sand on this before primer, as well as the stake pockets. I've just kind of got these rough flattened, and I'm going to come back again. And why I like to do that, while it's not too bad in this part of the country, I still don't want to deal with any type of rust issues that may form. So where this bare metal's exposed, I like to do my final sanding when I'm at least 24 to 48 hours away from putting this in final epoxy and primer, just so I don't have any rust issues or anything that's growing on there that could cause an issue in the future with the paint. What I plan to do though is I'm going to sand these all down and get these two ready for primer. And I'm actually gonna prime these really soon, just so it's two areas that are not gonna be any exposed metal for the moment. So I'm gonna finish these out, get these in primer, and then the bed sides will be next. Body work those out and get those done. Kind of waiting on those mainly because this back area needs so much work, and this side needs so much work with the filler. And I finally decided, I mean, this is one of those things that I have to think about it and think about it and think about it, how I want to do it the best. And so after literally hours of deciding what to do, I figured out how I'm going to do the filler on this. Now they do make some aftermarket kits for them. They're anywhere between $300 and $500 plus whatever your LED lights cost. I'm not going to use those. I seen how they are and seeing the instructions on them, and you have to cut away too much of this structure in here that I really don't want to have to worry about it. I don't think it would really weaken the bedside when you're done, but you do have to take a large chunk of this lower support piece that runs from bedside to bedside and cut it up a lot, and I just don't want to really do that. So instead of using one of the aftermarket ones, I'm gonna kind of make my own. It shouldn't be that involved the way I've decided to do it. And I mean, you guys might have a huge problem with this, you might not, but the way I like to do stuff is I like to be able to make it work. So if you have to take it apart or work on it in the future, it's easy to access, it's easy to take apart, and it's easy to work on. And with the aftermarket ones, they basically run a tube down through this stake pocket hole in a sense, and then cut this up and come out the side, and it just doesn't look that accessible once it's all put together. And where my filler is on the tank, it's gonna be right in this area. So the easiest way would be to come off underneath here, or actually come off an angle and come up. And so what I'm going to do, and I'll do a separate video on this just so you guys can see the process of how I'm doing it. I'm gonna do a flush cap filler in this area at about a 30 to 45 degree down angle. I'm gonna have to cut a little bit of this out and make some new structure in here to mount it. as well as do a recess. But then what I'm gonna do is have it come out right here, come down right here, and go down, and then essentially underneath the bed just has to come in right here to connect to the filler that's just under right here once everything's assembled. Another thing about this too is it allows me to run the secondary 5/8 vent and hook up to the filler kind of like a traditional fuel filler, if that makes sense. So you have an 1.5 inch pipe and then a 5/8 inch hose for the vent that connects to the gas cap, gas filler. And then with this area right here, I'm going to build a structure to enclose all this and cover it up. Whether it will be permanent or whether it'll be something that bolts on, I haven't decided that yet, but I'm thinking the way that this is, you can just have some sheet metal come off right here. It'll be kind of a triangular encapsulation. And I think I can even clear this body line. So I don't think I'm gonna have something up like this. I can't even draw a straight line. I think it's gonna end up being more right here on the edge is where my line will be for my little box that's gonna enclose this. And so other than a little triangular looking box that's all painted up, I mean, that will be the only difference from this side versus that side. And to me, the best part about all this is it easily allows access that I can undo the hose or hard line underneath here, and then I can end up sliding everything out up here if I ever have to take it apart to work on it. That makes sense. Hopefully, once I get everything all together and start working on it, you guys will be able to visualize it more. But that's the plan for now. I just feel like that's a lot better way to do the filler than have the ones that literally, like I said, they come down inside this structure right here and then cut through the framework support right here and then come out, which where my tank is, that makes a weird like S-curve, and I don't like that at all. So as you guys can see, there's still a lot of work to do on this bed before it's even in primer. Again, I thought it was gonna be a little bit faster than this, but I want it right, I want it done correctly, and it's just gonna take time, then hurry and slap it together and throw some paint on it and hope it looks good. Some of the stuff, of course, though, like I said, I can do pretty quickly, but a lot of these repairs and the sheet metal work is going to take a little bit more time to get it right. And I still have to figure out the door for the tail lights, and that shouldn't be a big deal. I know about where it needs to hinge down here to flip out and work properly without catching. The biggest thing is how to attach it right here if I want to use magnets or what I want to do to lock it in place. That I haven't decided what's going to work best for me on that. And I know I'm boring you guys by now, but one more thing I wanted to say. I really did want to do, but I just kind of prohibited by cost wise. I really love the look of it. They've got some aftermarket lights that are one piece. They get rid of this centerpiece right here, this divider, and you can either buy this whole piece with either just one solid brake light, or they make them with brake light and they actually move the reverse light down to here in a small rectangular one. But I really like the one piece design. I really thought about using those for this truck, but I haven't seen any set that's less than like $700 or $800, and I'm not going to spend that kind of money on tail lights. This isn't going to be a $200,000 truck, so it doesn't really make sense to do it, even though I love them and I've seen them on a few trucks and they look awesome. Well, that's it for the moment. Last thing I say before I close this out, I will say that I will not be body working the bed floor or these inner bed sides at all. The only thing I'm going to be doing is the wheel houses, and that's just because they were widened for the wider tires. So if I didn't body work those, you'd definitely see it. However, these inner sides, the front panel, the front header panel looks, and however these look, that's how they're gonna be. Any spot welds like these that you see, you'll probably end up seeing that through the paint, because I'm just gonna scuff these up and hit them with epoxy and do base clear. I am not gonna prime these or do body work on the floors or the inner sides. I just don't feel like it's worth the effort. This isn't gonna be a $200,000 truck. So however these turn out, that's how it's gonna turn out. And probably only gonna do one coat of primer on the wheel houses after the body work there and get those sanded out. I feel like for the inside of this bed, especially where it is not wood, however it turns out, that's how it's gonna turn out. Gonna focus all my effort back here, roll pan, bed sides. At least get those nice and straight. What I will be doing though is I do not like all these spot welds along the inner rails right here. So I will be fixing those. But that is about the only thing that's really inside the bed that I'm gonna be taking care of and cleaning up. All in all, I wouldn't say the sheet metal is horrible, but there is a lot of issues with it that I wish I didn't have to deal with, let's put it that way. In the perfect world, it would have needed this much work, but again, it is what it is. So after all of this, if you were to ask me if I regret buying all aftermarket sheet metal for the bed, I don't know. That's kind of an iffy question for me. I definitely needed a bed floor. The bed floor was definitely hammered. It was wavy. There's no way to save the original bed floor. I did have the option of cutting down the long bed sides and shortening them to short bed sides. Obviously, you'd had to do a cut here and a cut in the front and then shorten them up. And I really thought about that. So honestly, if I had to do this again, considering how my bed sides were, I probably would have opted to replace the floor and try to cut down and reuse my original bed sides. That's too late now. I no longer have those bed sides, but if I could go back in time with my time machine that I've never been able to invent yet, I would probably have done that instead. So it's just some thought for you guys. If you're in the same situation as me, where you're cutting down a bed to a short bed, if you like welding, you're comfortable with your welding skills, I probably would do that. So there's the bed in its current state, and I'm just gonna keep working away at it. So that's where I'm at with the bed. I've been working on that for the last couple weeks to get it where it's at, and then gonna come back and do a few things on the truck here in the future. But one of the next videos coming up is going to be doing the hidden fuel filler on the back of the C10 bed here, to show you guys how I go about doing that and get that installed. Also gonna have a couple of diagnostic videos coming out to show people how to kind of get into basic diagnostics with their new or newer vehicles in the near future. So I appreciate you guys for watching, and everyone that subscribes, again, thanks guys. It means a lot to me. Every single one of you, it means a lot. So keep the subscriptions coming, and have some more videos coming out soon. Until next time, thanks everybody. We'll see you guys next time. It'll work. It'll work. Not good? What? Yeah? Good enough? Yes? No? All right, we'll call it. Good girl.